Hello, my name is Donald Peppian. I'm an emeritus professor at New Mexico State University. This is a slide presentation of a video lecture at the International Blackfoot Research Conference last June. The first depiction reminds us that Native philosophy and knowledge is based on oral Genesis accounts. Dr. Brayboy was the first credentialed Native author to state stories are our theory in an academic journal publication. This depiction by noted Western artist C.M. Russell shows Piikani first man Napi storying with the animals. This is the introduction. In this presentation, we're dealing with two questions. What is Indigenous research methodology, and what is participatory action research? Chilisa, a Bantu scholar from Botswana, indicates the process of Indigenous research entails three elements: recovery, discovery, and action. Action is bringing about transformation or change. Wilson and Yellowbird, native scholars, cite the Maori author Linda Tuhawa Smith in defining colonization. Paulo Freire, the famous Brazilian philosopher, clearly articulated oppression of poor people. He helped us to understand why some of our own people turn against us. The need to decolonize. Decolonization is a resistance to forces of colonization that perpetuates subjugation, exploitation of our minds, our bodies, and lands. And it's to overturn the colonial structure for indigenous liberation. It begins in our own minds. The first step is to question legitimacy of colonization. Think about ways to resist and challenge colonial institutions and ideologies. Decolonization is not passive. Paulo Freire indicates reflection and action upon the world in order to transform it. Remember, we are not victims. We work towards freedom. There's a difference between Native American and Western knowledge. This slide demonstrates how Indigenous knowledge preceded Western knowledge. In other words, it was before Western knowledge. The periodic table of elements confirms everything is made of certain elements. The atom structure confirms everything is alive, while particle theory relates everything is moving and has energies. Natives call this spirit. I show the differences between Western and Native knowledge. First, Euro-Western knowledge separates matter. Euro-Western knowledge separates mind from matter. Secondly, Indigenous people never separated humankind from the natural world. Thirdly, Native American knowledge is relational and holistic. We always want to know the answer in Western knowledge, so I'm going to give you the answer, as well as two other important terms. The answers: we're all related, everything's alive, everything is moving, and everything has spirit. However, There are two important terms we need to know. One is epistemology and the other is ontology. Here's some simplistic explanations. First, epistemology is the nature and ways Native Americans develop, protect, and communicate knowledge. Ontology, Native American knowledge development through the nature of reality, which is really spirituality. It's based on oral tradition and experiencing the universe. It is important to remember these differences. Scientific method versus the indigenous paradigm. Western knowledge uses scientific method to find truth. Knowledge is objective. Everything is composed of objects or matter. Truth is based on precise observation and measurement that is verifiable through quantification. If something cannot be measured, it doesn't exist. However, native knowledge uses eons of experience and observation. It has socially constructed multiple realities shaped by multiple connections with the environment, the cosmos, the living, and the non-living. Truth is informed by a set of multiple relations people have with the world, and it's informed by indigenous knowledge systems. Now let's take a look at the ontology of difference. Kincheloe's writings talk about the ontology of difference. It's grounded on the epistemological and ontological power of difference. It has a multi-logical orientation. Kincheloe says Western knowledge is so bound to cultural supremacy and exclusionary practices that it fails to recognize the genius of subjugated and or indigenous information. He champions using other processes such as critical ontology to examine differences to achieve new concepts of human being. Critical ontology is grounded on the epistemological and ontological power of difference. This brings us to different interpretations of selfhood. The study of indigeneity and indigenous ways of being challenges tacit Western assumptions about the nature and construction of selfhood. A notion of critical ontology emerges in these conceptual contexts to push the boundaries of Western selfhood in the 21st century as we concurrently gain new respect for the genius of indigenous epistemologies and ontologies. The next two tables compare Western research methodology with an indigenous research methodology. It's taken from Bagwell Chilisa's 2020 book on indigenous research methodologies. Two slides demonstrate a decolonized approach to legitimize, enable, and include indigenous research methodology. It compares the indigenous methodology with one of the common positivistic practices for organizing the research process and procedures. The actual table is in Chilisa's book, that compares the Indigenous paradigm to 4 of the generally accepted research frameworks. That includes positivistic, interpretive, transformative, and pragmatic paradigms. Second slide finishes the comparison of Western positivistic research approach with the Indigenous framework. It has 3 important factors informing the research practice. 1, what counts as truth? Secondly, methodological structures. And third, data gathering techniques. Let's take a look at community participatory action research. Several studies in health disciplines have used Western methodologies with involvement of Native people and communities. Communities participate in all levels of the research, including the problem or scope of the research, the methods and interpretation, as well as analysis of the results. Native Americans have been the object of much research without community input or benefit. There are 7 key features in participatory action research. It's a social process, it's participatory, it's practical and collaborative, it's emancipatory, it's critical, and it's reflective, in other words, involving discussion, but it aims to change or transform both theory and practice to using an Indigenous methodological approach. This depiction is by a friend artist, Valente Pancho Sainz, and it demonstrates the complex interactions in the cycle of Indigenous knowledge. Thank you, and we now invite questions and comments.